Okay, we're here in the shop and we're going to talk about the difference between high surface energy surfaces and low surface energy surfaces. Now, a high surface energy surface tends to allow water or most polar liquids to wet out. It's like taking a droplet of water and dropping it on a piece of tinfoil. It just goes. Now, a low surface energy surface, if you take a droplet of water and you drop it on wax, it's going to bead up like you've seen a number of places. And that low surface energy surface is harder to stick to than a high surface energy surface. And that's a real simplification, but it's also hard for me to remember this. And so I got this mental picture in my mind that I use to keep track of this. And I use it mainly with plastics. Plastics are long polymer chains. They're not actually just one thing. Each plastic is a little different because they have different strands that stick together in different ways and fashions. And so I think of polymer strings as hairs in my mind. It's not quite right, but it's a good working model. And so when I'm trying to remember high surface energy, low surface energy, oh man, what actually sticks to what? This is how I remember it. And I don't use the water droplet analogy in my mind because that's confusing for me. What I do is I take and I think of it in terms of the hairs that are in that polymer. So high surface energy plastics, I think of them as hairy. Little ends of those hairs stick out on top. And so when you put your adhesive on top, now this is a fake story that I used to remember. Molecular chemists don't throw up. Don't do that. And they stick up, and then that gives the gum something to hold on to when it's trying to stick to that surface. Now, when I think of low surface energy plastics, I think of them as all laying down, as if all those little strands, no ends stick out. They just tuck back into the mat of polymer chains. And that creates a laid down low surface energy plastic. And that means that this is easier to peel off because it doesn't have anything to grab onto. That's the mental model I keep in mind when I'm thinking about this. It's a nice shorthand, and it's a working model, but it's not quite right. So to go through the different types of materials that tend to be different surface energies, and there's a million surface modifications you can use, chemical surface modifications, electrostatic modifications, corona treatments, plasma treatments, the list goes on and on. Dig into it. God, it's fascinating. So plastics like polystyrene, ABS, and PVC tend to be high surface energy plastics, easy to stick to. Aluminums and steels, if they're not coated, tend to be easy to stick to. And depending on the coating, that can modify how easy they are to stick to. Most coatings for metals are meant to manage corrosion. So anodizing of aluminum is going to keep your surface energy high, and something like a galvanizing of steel is also going to keep your surface energy high. Now, going over here to your low surface energy plastics, which are harder to stick to, you've got your polypropylenes and your polyethylenes. Your polyethylenes are everything from LLDPE to HDPE, and the list goes on and on. These are your oily plastics. They're high commodity plastics, easy to get them to flow when you're injection molding or rotomolding, and those tend to be really hard to stick to, which is also good because it keeps the dirt off of them. Now, powder coating is a plastic that gets electrostatically stuck to a metal, and then it's baked on. And when you do that, you're taking a low surface energy plastic and you're baking it onto the surface. So that surface becomes low surface energy. Typically, when you look at a pressure sensitive adhesive for a tape or a decal, your high surface energy adhesives are going to be less expensive, and your low surface energy adhesives are going to be more expensive. And you can also order your pressure sensitive adhesives with different thicknesses depending on whether the surface itself is textured, not just those hairy polymer strands. And that gives you a quick snapshot of the key things you need to know about high surface energy and low surface energy. Now, if you really dig into this, your molecular chemists are going to come up with all kinds of details, and it's fascinating because some of it's really counterintuitive. But 90% of what you need to know in terms of getting a surface and talking to a supplier about what type of adhesive you need involves this issue right here. What is the actual material you're trying to stick to? I hope that helps.